welcome to Sarah's Stamping Retreat. Today I'm going to be showing you how I use up some of the more tricky to use papers out of a paper pad. So this is part of a series that I am going to do on using up an entire paper pad. Because I don't know about you, but I have a load of papers and quite often I'll use a few and then the rest kind of sit in the cupboard for a bit. So I've set myself a challenge to use up a whole paper pad. Now the one I've chosen is this one. It's the Recollections paper pad Bloomsbury, and it's a really lovely paper pad. It's kind of blues and pinks and golds. So I'll show you the paper pad first. So this for me is one of the ones that's quite difficult to use. I don't do scrapbooking, I only do card making. So that for me is quite difficult to use in card making. So I'm setting myself a challenge to kind of think creatively and try and use it for my card making. So I'm going to show you the whole paper pad. We obviously won't be using all the pages today. So you get 2 of each design. So realistically, my series will show you how to use 1 of each design and then we can make doubles with the rest. So we've got borders and tags on this one. And it's actually a really lovely foiled paper pack. Now I've chosen a paper pack that I really love the colours and things on because it's going to obviously come with me for quite a few videos. There's actually 48 sheets in this pack, so realistically we'll be using 24 and then I'll make doubles to use up the pack. But there's a nice selection of kind of background sheets. This one I really love. I think that's quite nice for men's cards as well. And then floral elements and things, so we can make a nice variety of cards with them. So you can see that's a nice gold foiled stripe as well. I think some of these are much easier to use than others for card making. So obviously it's designed as a scrapbooking pack. Look how lovely that is. So then this kind of sheet I always cut up and use as toppers. So we'll have another video on how I'm going to use these toppers as well. And then this is another example of one that I find quite difficult to use for card making because it's so big and it's designed as a 12 by 12. I think it's quite difficult to use it for card making. So I'm going to tear that out. We're going to use that sheet first. So as you can see, it's a really lovely paper pack, but I'm going to focus today on the ones that I find hard to use for card making, and we can have a look together at different ways of using those. So I'm going to start off with this nice sheet. So I think because of the scale of it, it can be quite daunting to use for cards. So I'm going to try and kind of cut it up and piece it together to make my cards and just use all the different bits and pieces. So the first thing that I'm going to do is take my metal ruler and my paper trimmer and just trim off the border, because I think that we can use that in sections. It's not very easy to use for a card as it is. You could obviously use a paper trimmer for this if you wanted, but because I want to be very accurate and want to see what I'm doing properly, I'm going to use my Stanley knife and my metal ruler today. And it's very easy to do. I'm just running it along. This mat that I've got underneath is a self-healing Crest mat, so it's very easy to just do that on my mat. And please excuse me if my head gets in the way. I'm just trying to kind of make sure I can see what I'm doing. So now I've got my border piece separate to this piece. So then I'm going to cut into this piece. I'm going to cut out all the individual elements with my scissors. So when you want to cut into something like this, I find it easier because I've got very sharp scissors, just to put this through the paper close to where I want to cut and then start cutting from there. So then here are all the pieces that I've cut out. And I'm even going to keep this waist and I will keep those for a different video, so I'll show you what I'm going to do with those in a different video. So starting with the borders, I want to use the corners for a project, so I'm going to bring in my huge big caterpillar trimmer, and I'm just going to trim the corners. So I'm going to make a 6x6 card, and I want a little bit of a gap in the middle, so I'm going to do it just 1/8 under 3 inches, and I'm going to cut all the corners off at that measurement. So I'm now left with these 4 corners, which I'm going to use on a project in 1 minute. And I've also got 4 strips from the sides, which I'm sure you'll agree are much easier to use on our cards than that huge big frame. So then I've got my corners. I've got a card blank that I've made out of Stampin' Up! Very Vanilla cardstock, and this is just under 6 inches square, so it's 5 7/8 inches square, because that is the size that you can make out of an A4 sheet of cardstock. So it still fits nicely in a 6-inch envelope because it's just very slightly smaller. So I'm going to be popping these on here, but first I want to create an aperture in the middle. So I'm just going to use my trimmer to create a 2 1/4 inch aperture in the middle, and you can see if I lay these out. So I'm using the grid lines to be my card blank, and then we can count the grid lines in the middle to see that I've got 2 1/2 inches each way. So I want a 2 1/4 inch aperture, so I've got a little border all the way around. So if I want to lead up a border, then I'm going to cut at 1/8 under 2 inches, that's 1 7/8 inches all around the front of my card. I'm putting it in at 1 7/8 inches, and then I'm going to cut from 1 7/8 inches up to 4 inches, and that gives me 1 7/8 inches at the top. I'm going to keep doing that on all sides, and I can flip it back and forwards as well to make it a bit easier. So I'm going to put it in at 1 7/8 inches, and I'm going to cut from 1 7/8 inches to 4 inches. So I cut the 2-inch square from here, and then I foiled it using gold foil from Spellbinders and the thank you from this stylish script, thank you and happy birthday hot foil plates. I've obviously not foiled on camera today, but if you want to see how to do this, then I've got an unboxing video which shows you how to foil. And you can see, you can obviously, if you don't have a foiling machine, do heat embossing instead. But you can see this is very, very shiny and kind of gives you a slightly letterpress look, whereas the heat embossing is raised, so it does give you a bit of a different look. So what I'm going to do is just glue these corners on. Some dimensionals and just pop some of them on the back of the sentiment. I can pop that just in the centre of this square, so that opens like that. You've got the nice sentiment inside as well. So then there's our first card completed. So we've used up all those corners from that large piece. So I used the rest of this strip, so I cut a whole 2-inch strip, and then I cut a 2-inch square off the end of it for my last card. And I've used the rest of that strip just to foil all of those sentiments which I'll use for other cards. So now I've got these cute sentiments to use. Then for my next card, I've got a white A6 card blank, so that measures 5 7/8 by 8 1/4 inches. And I've just cut a piece of the other one of these papers just to fit the front. So I'm just going to glue that onto the front. And then I'm just going to chop off a quarter of this piece that we cut from the piece of paper. So I'm just going to chop it here. And I'm going to chop it here. And then I've got one of the outside border pieces that we cut, and I'm just going to pop that along there. So I just want to place this because I want to glue this section on first. Okay, so let's glue this bit on. And then I'm going to glue this piece of border down. Just chop that little extra bit off there. And then I've got this corner floral piece that we cut off as well. So I'm just going to glue that down the bottom. I'm just going to butt that up against the border. And then I'm going to chop this off the back. And I'm just going to add that back in there so as not to waste it. And then I'm just going to use some dimensionals just to pop that thanks up. I just want to add a little bit of added dimension, so I'm just going to add a few Nouveau drops just in this bubblegum blush colour. Then there's that card finished. So then for my next card, I'm going to continue using some of the piece of paper that we've already cut up. I'm also going to start cutting into this one because I think this one's quite difficult to use as well on cards. So I'm going to cut out all these words first. I'm going to use some on my next card. So then I've got an A6 very vanilla card blank, and I have cut two of these pieces down to 4 1/8 inches so that they fit across here, and then I've cut along all of these lines to create strips of borders, and that's what I've got here. So then I'm going to glue those down my card to create like a stripy card. Then with this piece of paper, I've cut the words from the middle, then I've cut this piece from the corner, and we'll use that later. And then I've just cut some flowers out of here just to use on this card. So these are the flowers that we're going to use on the card that I cut out of that piece of paper. Then I've used this this die here, the smallest of the detail ones, from the Polka Doodles, Posy Doodles Circles dies. And then that's one of the happy birthdays that I foiled earlier. So the happy birthday is from the stylish script Thank You and Happy Birthday that we used the thank you from before. And it's a Spellbinders hot foil play. And again, I just did it with the shiny gold because that goes really well with the gold that's in the pack. So then I'm going to layer up some of these flowers like this and pop the happy birthday there so that we kind of make a little feature in the middle of the card. So I'm just gluing these bits to the circle. Now I'm going to add a foam pad behind here. And then I'm also going to add a foam pad behind the happy birthday. Now I'm going to add some more foam pads behind here. Then that's that card finished. Then for my next card, I want to use some of this sheet of paper. I want to cut a 6-inch square out of it, but I still want to be able to use the rest of it. So I'm going to line this up 4 1/8 inches. And the reason I'm lining it up at 4 1/8 is because that is the size of an A6 card blank. So I want to leave enough room to be able to use an A6 card blank. And then I want to be able to use these flowers, so I'm going to start just after these flowers, so let's say 2.5 inches. So then I need to cut across to 8.5 inches to get my 6 inches. Then this time I'm going to want to start at 8.5 inches. I'm going to cut this way, so I'm going to cut from an 1/8 before 8 to an 1/8 before 2. And then turn it again. So this time I'm going to line it up at an 1/8 before 2, 3.5 to 9.5. And then I'm lining the bottom end at 9.5, which I know I can't put on the screen. And then I'm going to do 4 1/8 to 10 1/8. So I have got a few bits of the floral on the side. I wanted to make sure that bottom section was usable. I want to do this in full bloom, but actually I think I want a border on the outside, so I'm going to find some cardstock for that border. So I've chosen this dotty basil cardstock because I think it goes nicely with the blue on the leaves, and that will also, because I'm having a border, it will help me cut this down so that it hasn't got this one anymore, because I don't really want that one. So I actually changed the layers quite significantly. So I've got my piece of blue that covers my card front, and then this gold piece is 1/2 inch smaller, and then this piece that we cut from the paperback is 1/8 inch smaller than that, just so you see this nice small gold border. So I'm going to glue these 2 layers together, and I'm going to glue these 2 layers together. And then I'm going to use some fine tape to pop this off. And I'm going to pop up my flowers as well. And then I've got the in full bloom that I cut from the middle of the paper. So you can see the middle of the paper actually says let love bloom in full every day, but because that's too big a sentiment for on a card, I split it into in full bloom and love every day. So I'm going to use in full bloom on this one. And I'm actually just going to cut some little strips of the fine pads just to go behind the letters. So then I think I'm just going to finish off with a few of these bubblegum drops. So I think that's a really nice note card to give to somebody. It's got loads of shine, it's really fun. So my next card's going to be a super simple one. I've got a 5 by 5 inch white card blank, and I've cut this piece down to 4 inches square. So that's just some of the plain grid paper that we used on a different card. So I'm going to glue that into the corner of my card. And then I've got this piece, which is the bit that I cut from the corner of here. You can see that I've cut a bit of the blue off the outside because I didn't want as much blue around the border as there. So I've got those strips here ready to use on something else. And then I just cut round the flowers to create a border. And I'm going to pop that onto foam tape and pop it around the outside of the card. And then I'm going to use the Love Every Day that we've got left from that piece of pattern paper. And again, I'm going to cut pieces of foam pads to go behind them. Finish this one with some of these bubblegum drops as well. Then there's that note card as well. Then for my next card, I've got a 5x5 inch card blank. I've got this piece of the same dotty basil card that we used for one of the other ones. So this is 5.5 by 5 inches as well because I want to cover the front of the card with it. I've got a 3 3/4 inch piece of this paper, and I've got a 4-inch piece of gold foil sheet, so I'm going to just glue those together and add them to the front of my card as well. And I think I might go for a bit of additional dimension and add that to my card with foam tape. So then these are some more of the flowers that I cut from the corners of that big piece. So there's some of these flowers. And I'm going to add some foam pads behind them as well. When I've got big foam pads like this, I quite often like to cut through some of them just so that I've got them there to hand smaller, so that I can just kind of like take them off when I need them. And then I've just got another foiled thank you from that set I did at the beginning. So again, this is from that Happy Birthday and Thank You hot foil plate set from Spellbinders. I'm just going to pop that in the middle there. And there is that card finished. So now I'm just going to cut a panel off this side to fit this slimline card. So my slimline card is 3 inches by 8 inches. And then I'm just going to set this aside for a minute while I just cut out the rest of the flowers on this panel. Then coming back to the slimline card, I'm going to just glue this piece that I cut out onto here. And then I'm going to take another part of this, I'm going to cut another quarter off. And then I'm just going to add that on here. I kind of want to add some foam pads behind that to add a bit of interest. So I'll just cut up a few strips. And then I can pop that on here. And then I'm just going to snip those ends off. And I'm just going to pop foam pads behind this as well. So again, that's another thank you from the happy birthday and thank you hot foil plates. And for me, the happy birthday and thank you hot foil plates are absolutely perfect because those are the two types of cards that I'm most likely to send. So that's why I'm using it so much today. So then I've just got some of these gems. They're kind of unbranded gems. I'll see if I can link to them below. It might not let me. But they're just these tiny little gold gems. I've used them on quite a lot of my videos recently because I just find them really useful. And I'm just going to put these teeny tiny dots of glue in the middle of all these teeny tiny flowers on here. I'm using my little Sticks 2 pencil here just to pick them up and put them in place. And then I'm just going to add a few on some of these little dots around here as well. So then I've just got this lovely simple shiny thank you card. So then for this next card I've got these, which are the rest of the flowers that I've cut from this paper. By the way, when I cut the flowers out of this paper, I used some of this edge bit to create some more foiled sentiments because I needed some more. So I've got a pink 5x5 card blank, then I've got a 4.5-inch square piece of this basil cardstock, the same blue as I've been using all through. Then I've got a 4.25-inch piece of this paper from the pack. And then I'm going to lay these bits round so that they kind of create a bit of a wreath. I'm just going to kind of overlay them with each other. And I'm just trying to cover up where there's like bits like this where I've kind of cut it off another piece. If I lay that under, then you can't really see it and it kind of creates a nice kind of wreathy type shape. So I'm just going to glue this down. So then I'm just going to finish off this card with this foiled thanks. So again, I've foiled it onto kind of scraps that I've cut off. And then this thanks is from this Be Bold Glimmer Sentiments from Spellbinders. And it's actually a nice one because it comes with a die as well, so it cuts around it. So you get a nice finish on that. So I'm just going to cut some foam pads to go behind this. So then that's that card finished. So then for this next card, I've got an A6 card blank, and then I've got this piece of just that same blue basil dotty cardstock. I think it might be called Swiss dotty maybe, but I'll try and link it below. That's about 1.25 inches wide. It's the same height as my card blank, so I'm just going to glue that down the side. And then I've got this piece of this kind of grid paper from the pack, and this is 3 inches wide and it's the same height as the cardstock again. And then I want this floral border to go down here. So I cut that from this piece that we cut this square out of earlier, so I've just cut along this border here. I'm actually going to put this on with some foam tape. I want that to go along there, so I'm just going to stick that just under the edge of this floral panel. That's just a piece of gold foil sheet. And then I've got another piece of this border which I've used on a few cards. And I'm going to pop that under there. I just think it adds a nice bit of detail. I'm really enjoying using those. So I'm just going to then add this happy birthday birthday wishes sentiment. I'm just going to use bits of foam pad to attach it. The bee is going to be on top of the flowers, so I'm going to just glue there. So I just add a little bit of glue behind this bee. And I'm just going to add another little strip behind this wishes. And the birthday wishes comes from this Splatter Sentiments hot foil plates. And then I'm just going to scatter around a few of these gold gems that we were using earlier, just to finish it. So that's that card finished. So then for my final card, I'm just finishing off bits and pieces from those awkward sheets of paper. So I've got the last one of these kind of corner flowers. I've got the last bit of this border which I've cut into 3 pieces. I've got the last piece of this, so then I'm just going to combine those all on here. I've also got a piece of this paper which I've used a lot of now. I've actually used most of this sheet of paper through these cards, so there's not a lot of that left at all. So that one's 3.5 inches wide and the same height as my card. So then I'm just going to glue this piece in. And then I'm going to pop this piece of border along the side. And then I'm going to pop this along here. And then I'm just going to straighten off these end bits here. And in fact I might actually put this on like I did the last one with strips of foam pads. Actually I just want to pop this under here. I think it's that nice for that to go across the top of everything, so I'm just going to glue that underneath. And then I've got another one of these thanks sentiments that I've used before, and I'm just going to pop some foam pads behind that as well. And then I feel like I can't resist a few more of these gems. I might actually just pop them all the way down as dots in a pattern this time. So then that's our final card for today finished. So let's bring in the other cards. Then going back to the sheets, there's obviously this one and this one that were our hard to use sheets that I wanted to use up. And all I have left of them now are some little scraps like this that I'm going to, at the end of this series of using up this pad, I'm going to have like a scraps use up video. So I'm going to save all these little scraps for that. But we've made 10 cards with the focus being those 2 pages. We've obviously added in bits from other pages like this grid paper that I've used on quite a lot of them, but the main focus has been those 2 pages. So I really hope that you got some ideas of how to use up those kind of really big kind of focal point pages on your cards, and I hope you like the finished product of all our cards. If you enjoyed today's video, I'd really appreciate you clicking like below. You can also press subscribe if you'd like to see future videos. If you press the bell button and select all, then YouTube will also notify you when I've got new videos available. All of the products that I've used for today's cards are listed in the description below, and there's also a link to my blog where you can find a picture product list. I know sometimes that makes it a bit easier to find what you want. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope to see you again soon.